Welcome to another webinar for Cougs Work, Webinars for the Workforce by Cougs. My name is Brianne Wyatt, Senior Conference Manager for Washington State University Professional Education. Tonight's presenter is Dr. Tammy Crawford, Clinical Assistant Professor of Sports Management, who will be speaking on working in sports beyond the fandom. Dr. Crawford's experience in the world of sports has included varied and exciting roles, from championship and award-winning women's rowing coach to creator and coordinator of the Careers in Sports Fair within the sports management program. Her research is focused on issues pertaining to undergraduate student development and engagement in university programs, current trends, and issues related to college athletics, sociocultural issues related to sport, and sports marketing. This presentation will last between 20 and 30 minutes, and I'll be back after the presentation to go through a Q&A. And as you're watching, please feel free to post a question in the chat feature. With that, we are pleased to bring you Dr. Tammy Crawford, Clinical Assistant Professor, Sports Management.
Hi, Brianne. Thanks for having me. Welcome, everybody. I have no idea how many people might be out there watching this, but hopefully if you have any questions, feel free to chat them at Brianne, and at the end of the presentation, she will feed them to me and we will get your questions answered. Like all good professors, I hope, you can see a general overview of where we're going with this discussion. So I want to give you some general advice, which may or may not apply to sport management, to be honest with you. An overview of the sport industry, so you know what it is we're talking about and whether or not you may in fact really be interested in working in the sport industry. Break it down a little further into specific jobs within the industry, and then talk to you about whether sport management really is a specialty and a little bit about the skills associated with working in the industry. How do you get a job in the sport industry? And then if you're able to get an interview, what happens next? Where do you go from there? So general advice. I think that this applies to sport management, and it applies to almost any other job that you likely are interested in pursuing. And that would be to meet people in the industry so that you can learn about whatever the industry is, but certainly specific to sport management. Learn what skills are needed in order to be successful in whatever job or area that you're interested in working in. And as you start to dive in, learn what you like and what you don't like about certain types of jobs. Is it inside? Is it outside? Is it with people, not people? Technology, not technology? You know, what is it that makes you happy? Because it's important that you enjoy what you're doing. So you have to take a little bit of ownership in that. So learn about the industry, figure out what it's going to take for you to be successful, and then figure out what you like and don't like. I did sit in on a Cougs Work the other evening, and I listened to the speaker there talk about mentorship. And as he was speaking, I was nodding my head saying, yes, yes, mentors, they're very important. And I do think having a mentor is very important, and maybe more than one mentor, to be honest with you, because I think mentors play a variety of roles. Three that I can think of is somebody who has experience in the industry. And so I consider myself a mentor to a lot of students, because I've been around the sport industry in a lot of different aspects, a lot of different parts of the industry. And I feel like I have a good, as I will say, 1,000-foot view of what is the sport industry. So when a student speaks to me, I can ask them those kind of questions. What do you like? What do you dislike? What interests you? So I think if you can find somebody who understands the industry that you're interested in, then they can help direct you, kind of navigate you down that path to get a little bit closer to areas that do interest you. And then the next one would be somebody that can connect you to others for advice. So if there is a certain area that you're interested in, trying to find somebody that sort of specializes in that area so that they can answer your questions and give you guidance on how to best navigate into that kind of a role. And then finding someone that can open the door for you. And by that, I don't mean get you the job. I mean somebody who can speak to your skill set and help you get introduced to somebody in that area and say, hey, I know Brianne. I think that she would be great. You should visit with her. And then if Brianne can get through her foot in the door, then the rest of it is up to her. So I think that this is sort of general advice regardless of whether it's the sport industry or not, but I definitely think it applies to the sport industry. So this is the sport industry from the 1,000-foot level. A lot of times in our own program, when students sign up to for sport management, they're not exactly sure what they want to do. So I try to help them understand at least the general areas of the industry. And I'm sure if you're watching this, you know sports and you are probably familiar with most of the areas, but you might not be familiar with some of the sub areas. So in college sport, the first thing that comes to mind is intercollegiate sport for a lot of people that say, oh, I want to work in college sport. But university recreation is another area of college sport, which there are a lot of job opportunities in. And it's a slightly different kind of lifestyle than working in college sport, intercollegiate sport. So I think being aware that there is more than just intercollegiate sport is important, and investigating, again, what kind of opportunities might exist on a college campus. If it is appealing to you to live in a college town or work in a university setting, then investigate both of those avenues. Clearly,
I know you wanted to share your screen. Would you like to share your PowerPoint with us?
Oh, yes, I would. How are you doing? You got that?
We've got you now.
Thank you very much. Professional sport. I think everybody's familiar with professional sport, but again, there's a variety of professional sport. It's not just the major leagues, you know, the NFL and the Major League Baseball. It doesn't matter if you're interested in working in sport, the skill set oftentimes stretches across all varieties of sport. If you are interested in marketing or communication or any aspect of the sport industry, that exists in all levels of professional sport, not just in one certain area. So a skill set that you develop is oftentimes very much applicable to a lot of different areas. And somebody may initiate their first career working in, you know, in Major League Baseball, when in fact they really want to work in hockey. That's okay. It's a skill set that you develop along the way. So if your aspiration is to work in professional sport, if you can't find a job in that particular type of sport, it's okay. I mean, maybe you want to work in triathlons and coordinating triathlons or the golf circuit or something like that. It doesn't matter. There are just certain skills that you want to develop. Community sport, that includes parks and recreation, the YMCA. Again, a different type of sport experience, a different type of lifestyle perhaps than participating and working in college or professional sport. So this is where you have to kind of do your homework and learn about the different types of the industry and what might be a good fit for you. Obviously, high school athletics, being a high school athletic director is appealing to some people. Working in the private industry, perhaps wanting to own a business or work for a business that specializes in certain kinds of training, like a velocity sport, if you're trying to help an athlete achieve their highest level of athleticism, but also, you know, running a Planet Fitness or a CrossFit or Snap Fitness or any of those kind of parts of the private industry. A lot of times people don't have the nonprofits on their radar. And when I say nonprofit, I made a little note here. I don't mean the NFL or the NCAA. Believe it or not, those are nonprofit organizations. That people don't really realize that is a fact. When I say nonprofit, I'm referring to like the United States Olympic Committee or Special Olympics. There are a lot of nonprofit organizations who require a lot of management skills that all of the other organizations require. Perhaps a governing body working for the NCAA, working for the United States Olympic Committee, working for like Washington State Interscholastic Activities Association, or a professional league. There are governing bodies that oversee a lot of these organizations. And so there are opportunities there that might be a little bit more administrative. And then player representation. Sometimes we have students that ask about wanting to work in sport law or something like that. So anyway, this is the kind of the big view, I would say. And within each one of these, or within most of them, then there are a little bit subcategories that are more specialization, right? Working in administration, where you're doing personnel, front office, finance, development, which might be fundraising if you're at the college level, working in sport communication, all forms of media, which is just a booming if you're talking about trends in the sport industry. This notion of creative services and ideation is sort of a subcategory of that, and it ties in with the marketing component. But with sport communication, you've got public relation and the media relation, getting the information out to the press, or advertising events, those kind of things. And kind of dovetailing with that would be marketing and the promotions piece of it. And that ties into, you know, social media and messaging and those kind of things. So they go a little bit hand in hand, and some of the skill sets overlap there. Sponsorship, that's obviously key to revenue generation, as is marketing, as is sport communication. Ticket sales, event management. A lot of people just don't realize as a fan, and I know the title of this has something to do with sports. It's more than fandom. Next time you sit at an event, let's hope that happens soon, realize, just sit and look back and think about all of the moving parts that had to happen in order for game day to happen in Pullman. Okay, those that experienced game day in Pullman thought it was super exciting, but I will tell you, Cougar Athletics virtually shut down and redirected all of their energy to game day that week. And we were talking, it was the week right before volleyball and basketball seasons were supposed to pick up and get going as well. Everything redirected to make sure game day was a great experience, and there was a lot of work that went into that. Event management, facility management. Again, somebody's got to get the venues ready to go, coordinate the practices, coordinate the pre-game or pre-event activities, make sure everything's cleaned up and ready to go, safety, risk management, all of that. Equipment, a lot of times people think, oh, equipment, how important could that be? Well, it's really important, regardless of the sport. Think of all of the pieces of equipment that go into whatever the event might be. Coaching, I would say some of my peers, my faculty member peers, we have maybe not the same opinion. Some people say sport management is not, or coaching is not sport management. And I think coaching is a big part of sport management. I think you do a lot of management when you're being a coach. As somebody who coached a Division I sport for many years, over a decade, coaching was probably 20% of what I did. And 80% of what I did had to do with working with all of those other aspects of marketing and equipment and managing people and recruiting and those kind of things. So coaching, within coaching, there's also this subcategory of operations, which is that person that's basically making sure that the team is functioning and making sure that the coach has their needs and those kind of things. Video, strength training specifically, athlete well-being, that would be more like the sports medicine side of it. And then within college athletics, all of those things I just mentioned are kind of sub jobs within college athletics. But within college athletics, then there's also a compliance piece because they are student athletes, right? So they have to be eligible. There are recruiting rules and those kind of things. There's academic support to make sure that the athletes are staying eligible and that they understand what the rules are and are following them. And then there's life skills, which is more kind of like the personal development of not the athletic development, but the personal well-being of that student athlete, whether that's psychological well-being or resume building or any of those kind of things. So as you think about areas that might interest you working in sport, this is we've kind of started at the top and say, here's the big umbrella of all of these areas of the industry. And then within each one of those industry, there's all of these aspects as well. Is sport management a specialty? We like to say in sport management that sport is a unique product. And the reason we say that is because as sport managers, we don't have control over the winning and the losing. The coaches do, but as a sport manager, as one of those people that works in administration or event management or equipment or communication, any of those areas, you can do the best job ever. And you don't have control over whether the team wins or loses. So in that regard, the things that we have control over are the consumers. And so it is important for you to know who your consumer is and know how to make them happy, know what their needs are, know what their wants are, and be able to deliver those. And that is really what sport management is about, is knowing who that consumer is. And that's not to say that that's not the case in other industries. Of course it is. But again, it's a bit unique in sport because you really don't have control over what people consider the product is actually. So you have to be really attentive to those things. And I would say as a fan, fans are not usually even aware of those things because when everything goes well, they don't notice them, right? So you need to not think like a fan, you need to think like the person who is serving the fan and make sure that their needs are met. That said, I think that the skill set necessary is kind of generalizable. I made a note there that said our graduates, and that was to help remind me that I don't know what the percentage of our students are that are actually working in sport management. I can tell you when they leave how many, in general, how many get jobs and start working in the industry, but a lot of them don't stay working in the industry forever. I've been teaching in the sport management program since 2002. And I can tell you that a lot of our students that have worked in the sport industry are not working in the sport industry for whatever reason. But they are very marketable because they have this very broad skill set. Okay. And that skill set might include, I'll bounce forward to the next slide, people skills, good communication skills, and taking initiative. Those are kind of the fundamental skills that are needed to work in the sport industry. Again, because it's a very people-oriented and consumer-oriented profession. So if students have these kind of general skills and then they build extra skills on top of them, whatever those other skills might be, then it makes them very marketable in other areas of the industry. So, or outside of the industry, I should say. When I said other skills, do your homework. That means what other skills? If you want to work specifically in marketing, or if you want to work specifically in sponsorship or ticket sales or equipment or any of those subcategories that I listed at the 500-foot level, then you need to figure out what those kind of jobs are. Well, how do you learn? Okay, well, a good place to start is on LinkedIn, to be honest, or on Teamwork Online. Teamwork Online is a place where a lot of jobs are advertised. Obviously, LinkedIn, searching people that have the kind of job that you think that you might be interested in. What does their resume look like? What did they do to get where they are? What are the skills that they have? Are they managers of people? Are they managers of time? What is important in order for them to be successful, and how did they get there? So I do think it's important to own your own education, whatever that education looks like, to try to figure out what it is that you need to develop in order to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. So developing those skills, I say, take ownership, take initiative. In these times, if we're COVID times and we're sitting at home trying to find things to do, sometimes reading books, whatever, complete tutorials. I was recently supervising a number of students who were off doing their internships, and in March, all of a sudden, all their internships came to a grinding halt and they had to return home. So how do we help them develop some skills? There are a lot of, whether it's on Coursera or just Googling up how to work with different InDesign products, whatever it is. What skills do you need, and how might you figure out how to improve those skills? So take ownership again, and take initiative, and learn how to do some of those things. And then the next thing I said was volunteer, and that is kind of difficult to do right now in this moment. But again, I always tell my students that sports there's like 6 degrees of separation in sport. And it's kind of funny because our moderator, Brianna, and I were talking before this started, and yeah, I know her sister. I supervised her for her honors thesis, and then we actually talked, and I think we actually sent interns to the company that she worked for prior to this current job. And it's just crazy that we have actually talked, probably 5 years ago, we actually connected. Who knew? So in the sport industry, if you volunteer, that helps you learn a little bit about that industry that you're volunteering. If you live in a college town, if you happen to be in Pullman, trust me, event management, they need help running events. So volunteer. They need help setting up venues. Special Olympics, they're looking for volunteers. Pullman Parks and Rec, they're looking volunteers. The high school, even the Seahawks, even the Mariners, they have street teams that are out there doing marketing and promotion. So if you're willing to volunteer or spend some time to learn about the industry and give back to the industry, that is going to do wonders for you, because it's a win-win. It helps you connect with people. It helps you demonstrate that you're going to take initiative, that you're going to show up on time, that you have an interest, and you learn the bigger picture as well as meeting people. So I think it's really important to just not sit back and think that it's going to come to you, because it's not. You need to sort of take the steering wheel and take charge of what it is that you want to learn. Use your mentors. That is how you would develop mentors. That is how you would figure out who could fill those certain roles for you. I'm not a big fan of the term networking, although I use it there. I said build a network of professionals. I don't like the term network in that you're just schmoozing somebody, you know, and trying to get to know them and asking them for a business card, slipping them your business card. Building a network means that you build a bit of a relationship with that person so that they know who you are and they can speak to your qualifications. Oh yeah, I know Tammy. Yep, she came out for this event. She was here for 10 days, or excuse me, 10 hours. And she took initiative and she spoke to the fans coming in the gate, and she, you know, helped people solve problems, and she just didn't wait to be told, those kind of things. So I think that kind of take ownership. That's how ultimately you end up securing a position. Going back to the fandom thing, if you figure out where you want to work, and it is in fact in the sport industry, and you manage to secure an internship, one of the questions that are often asked is, so why do you want to work for us? And if I was in a class, I would say, what do you think the most common answer is? And the common answer is often like, oh, I've been a Seahawks fans forever. I've been a Mariners fan. So I've been to every Seattle Reign game, or, you know, whatever. If it's professional sports, then a lot of times that's the first instinct that students want to say is that, oh, I've just been a fan forever. Is that enough? What is it that's important to that organization? For some organizations, that is meaningful. In our career fair, I listened to some of the HR people speak from the Mariners and from the Sounders, and they thought it was important that the people that they hired were fans of the team. But it goes beyond that, okay? Because being a fan isn't really what it's all about. What is more important than being a fan? Almost every organization, the goal of every organization is to create value, right? To improve the value of their organization. Oops. Okay, so the goal is to figure out what it is that is going to help that organization generate revenue. Because even if it's a nonprofit, it needs to generate revenue in order to stay productive. So what does that look like for that organization? Is that putting butts in seats at the game? Well, what's going to make people buy tickets to a game? A great experience. Well, what does a great experience look like? What brings them into the venue? So whether that is starting with the social media in drawing fans in, whether that's the giveaways at the game, whether that was the press release that was written, whether the bathrooms are clean and there's not a line at concessions, whatever that looks like. You need to figure out what role you're going to fill and be able to demonstrate to those people in that interview for that position that you are seeking out, how you are going to be really effective at it and how it's going to bring value to their organization. And that will separate you from your peers that might be interviewing for the same job. So I think my last slide, I don't know if you want me to go to my last slide, but my last slide was just to kind of recap some resources. One is Teamwork Online, and that's where a lot of jobs are posted. I mentioned LinkedIn, and there's nothing wrong with reaching out to someone on LinkedIn and asking for an interview and ask them to tell you about their position and how they got there and take it a step further. That's part of the relationship building aspect. And then I mentioned this Brian Clapp Careers in Sport. That's a website where there's a lot of podcasts, and there's over 100 podcasts, and you can listen to somebody who does marketing in minor league baseball, or somebody who runs golf tournaments or triathlons or whatever. He interviews a ton of people and he creates podcasts about it. And so I have my students listen to them a lot. Some of them are 30 minutes long and some of them are 50 minutes long, and they're just a wealth of information. So I would encourage you to Google that up as well. And that is my speed date of information about careers in sport.
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Crawford. You definitely spoke directly to my soul for my past career in sports. So that was wonderful. I do have some questions for you. And for those of you watching who haven't maybe yet posted a question in the chat, please feel free. That chat is open and we are monitoring it. So Dr. Crawford, you talk a lot about value. In terms of value, WSU's sport management program has really been leading the way in education in this discipline. What do you think sets WSU apart from other programs across the country?
I would say there's a couple things that sets WSU's program apart from others. And I would say we have a balance of faculty who have a wealth of experience, like myself, who have worked in the industry, and faculty who are also kind of more theoretical and have done a lot of research, and their expertise leans into the studies and the research that have gone in addition to that. And so students that take classes in general are taking classes from people who have PhDs and have this wealth of experience or have this wealth of theoretical background. And it's a good balance of expertise, if you will. So I would say that's one thing. The other thing is that the model of having an internship and the model of getting experience is built into the curriculum. And that goes back to one of my early slides that said, you've got to figure out what you like and what you don't like. And so when students are going through our program, quite honestly, they're not allowed to just get all their experience in one area. They have to get 3 different types of experience, because a lot of times students aren't drawn, for instance, to parks and recreation. They don't even consider it, or university recreation. But if they have to choose from this cookbook of options, then they get a little bit of experience that they didn't even anticipate, and they realize that, wow, there are careers in this area that pay well. And again, it goes back to kind of a lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with working in professional sports or college sports, but when do those happen? Evenings, weekends, and holidays. It is very much a lifestyle, and not everybody's prepared for that. But some people thrive in it. So again, it gives you that opportunity, if you're getting those experiences early on, to sort of figure that out. We have a lot of students that come in maybe from the Seattle area that are just like, oh, I've been a Seahawk fan forever. I really want to work in professional sport. But then they start getting hours in Cougar athletics, and they realize, wait, I really like working in the Pac-12 conference, and I like what comes with being part of a college athletic department scene. So again, it's that wealth of experience that gets built in, and how that gets incorporated into the classroom. I think that that's a big part of what makes us unique. And also that we're not really specialized in one area. So it's not just athletics, it's that whole 1,000-foot level that I discussed with you. All of those elements are brought into our coursework so that it's not a super narrow focus.
That's great. I know when I was transitioning out of the world of sport, I did wonder, how are some of these very specific sports industry skills transferable? And it sounds like you're really setting students up for success for how they can take the knowledge that they have and to go out into the non-sport world if that's what they choose after the fact. What do you feel is the current trend in the sports industry in terms of job availability?
Well, if we're talking current day, I would say things are a big challenge right now in COVID times. But I would say in general, I think the biggest piece is that that whole communication piece, and how information is getting dispersed to the consumers. And so I think that one of the things that's really, really, really important, and I don't think it matters what area a person wants to work in, I think is that development of those creative social media type skills, and being able to use just InDesign and even Microsoft products, like whether it's being really skilled at Excel, or being really skilled at the different Adobe Suite products, and being able to turn out a really creative flyer, which then can go out on social media. And then just being in general, being kind of a creative thinker, because it's a cluttered market, okay? And when sports do open up again, everybody and their brother is going to be trying to get people to buy a ticket to their event, because everything's probably going to open up at once. And so trying to figure out who the consumer is and how you can reach them, what modality they're going to be on, and trying to connect with them and let them know about your product, and then serving them well, obviously, is really important.
I will definitely back you up on the needing to know Excel portion of what you just said. I think that is undervalued by so many people coming out of college. You need to know Excel if you're going to work in sports, or anywhere really, but yeah, absolutely Excel. In terms of advice for the future students and looking at the landscape, what advice do you have outside of know where you want to go and what you want to do? If people aren't quite sure, what's the next level piece of advice? If they're not quite sure yet, what does work for them?
I think it goes back to some of the resources like I listed, like Googling up some of those careers in sport podcasts and hearing what people in the industry have to say. or like I said, going on LinkedIn. And people love to talk about themselves. Okay, people are passionate about their jobs typically, and if they're working in sports, they must be passionate because it's just a crazy industry. So yeah, I think that it's taking that initiative to talk to people and learn about those areas, even if maybe they're not actually executing those skills right now, and finding out maybe there is a way that people could be contributing to an organization. I mean, you don't have to be boots on the ground. Clearly, there's a lot of things happening remotely. And maybe if a student has or a person has design skills, maybe they could reach out to an organization and help them with some of their creative needs in advance of everything opening up. I think that just, again, people are sometimes a little bit hesitant about taking that initiative, like they're waiting to be told what to do, even though they kind of know what they want to, they're just hesitant, they think maybe they're not supposed to. And no, take initiative, reach out to someone. I mean, the worst that happens is they're gonna say, no, thank you. But honestly, most people will, one, want to talk about how they got where they got and what it is their job really entails. And again, a lot of times if I have my students do interviews with people in the industry, and a lot of times the last thing people say to them is, oh, well, let me know if I can ever help you. And you know what? A lot of times that pans out into some kind of a connection for a summer job or an internship or something. So again, it starts with trying to make connections and learn about what interests you, and then start contributing.
That's great. So during the talk earlier, you mentioned kind of the other in terms of the sports industry. And one of those that I keyed in on was the United States Olympic Committee, the USOC. So the head of the USOC is Sarah Hirschland, and she just started in 2018. And that's what some would consider a big position for a female that they hadn't seen in the past. I feel like there's a changing landscape with sports, with more women entering into the sports field. Do you see that more women are entering the sports management program as well? Or do you still see there may be some obstacles with encouraging women who are interested that working in sports is a possibility for them?
I do see that there are more women interested in sport. I do think that there are obstacles, because I do think that a lot of the people that are in the decision-making positions, those are predominantly men. But I also think it comes back to what is best for the organization. And so I think in particular for women, as well as anybody, and males as well, who want to get a job in the sport industry, it is about developing those hard skills and soft skills, and being able to present those with confidence. And if you are able to do that, I don't think that discrimination is likely to happen as much. I mean, it might be dependent on a specific organization, but again, at the end of the day, organizations want to be successful. And it really, of course, it shouldn't matter. And I think it's mattering less and less. What is happening, I think, or what the gender or the race or that kind of thing. I do think discrimination exists, but I do think it comes back to skill set. And if someone is able to demonstrate that skill set, so I would say specifically your question to women, I would say be assertive. Sometimes women don't want to be as assertive in a classroom. And in our classroom, it is predominantly men in the class. If there's 30 students in our class, there might only be 7 of them that are women, to be honest with you. But I would say, again, own it and build those skills and present yourself with confidence and take initiative, and it just won't matter.
Absolutely. During your presentation, you spoke about internships, and I know that internships are not only a requirement for the program, but are also a very strong recommendation for getting your foot in the door. Can you highlight some of the great internships or careers in sports management that students have been able to gain from the careers in sport fair that you created?
I have a couple of different angles. First, I'll talk about the internship piece. And very often, typically in a semester, maybe we have 18 students that are out doing an internship. I would say between 15 and 20 students in a semester might be out doing an internship. And out of those 15 to 18, I would say typically 5, 6, 7 of them get a job offer before they finish their internship. And a lot of times, part of this goes back to the sport industry being, people tend to enter in and then not stay in that particular role for very long. The entry-level jobs are not highly paid. You have to you don't get the keys to the kingdom right away. You have to show that you're competent. But if you show that you're competent, you tend to move up pretty quickly. And so a lot of times people supervising those interns are those entry-level job people, and maybe they've only been in that role for 2 years. So now they're supervising this intern, something opens up ahead of them, they take that position and the intern slides into their role. So that happens frequently. We've had that happen, like, I don't know, with the Fiesta Bowl, we had somebody working in sales for the Houston Astros, and he was just rocking sales, and all of a sudden he had a full-time job and he was super successful. We've had that happen just across the industry, and it's not uncommon. We've had it happen in a lot of parks and recreation jobs. So again, you asked me also what separated our program a while back, and I said the internship, but I wanted to build on that something we hear from the supervisors is that our students are really good interns because it's not their first rodeo. They've already got this practicum experience that they had to do coming through the curriculum while they were getting their undergraduate degree. And so they've got 3 or 4 really valuable experiences before they even get to their internship. So when they're doing their internship, they are capable of taking initiative and making decisions, and they're not timid about it. And so that helps them secure some of those positions before they're even done with their internship. So I think the job opportunities are great in that regard, and a lot of interns step into full-time positions, or they get the thumbs up, like, man, if we had an opening, we would definitely hire you, but use me as a recommendation. Or I know somebody, like I said, 6 degrees of separation. They'll say, oh, well, we're not hiring, but I know somebody else at this other organization and they're hiring. And so they connect them. With the Careers in Sport fair that we've done, which tends to kind of be happening every other year. I've done it on the WSU campus here in Pullman a couple times. We did it over in Everett last December, which was a big hit. And it's great because, again, students have that opportunity to network with people that come in. We had Erin O'Connell from the University of Washington, the associate AD. She was there speaking. We had Mike Flood from the Seahawks. We had Michelle Delancey. We just had people from all over the industry join us in Everett, and it was just great because our students were having conversations with them and making those connections so that, yes, they could take the next step and pick up a practicum, pick up an internship, pick up a summer job, those kind of things. So did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I know I sort of gave you a 3-prong question.
That's okay.
So my last question for the evening, if you were to highlight what you feel like might be one underrepresented field in the sports management family.
That's a tough question. I think it would be probably recreation in general, whether that's university recreation or community parks and recreation, and those would be the big umbrella opportunities. Again, I think that people aren't aware of all of the involvement in event management. Yeah, if you want to work for the USGA or Golf Association or the Tennis Association, or, like I said, the Coeur d'Alene Triathlon or whatever. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities in event operations type things for major events. So I think those are, an X Games or something. I mean, I think those are great opportunities as well. But as far as career opportunities that I think our students don't think about coming in, I think that a lot of those would be in the recreation field because they are raised in sort of this competitive mindset, and they think college and pro sports is where it's at. And like I said, they don't really realize what great job opportunities exist in the recreation field. And so I think that's kind of a hidden gem, but it's a tough question because I think so many students come in with a little bit of tunnel vision. If I say, what is your career aspiration in a class of 30, I bet 10 of them say they want to be a general manager of a professional football team. And there's nothing wrong with that, but let's take a step back and see how many professional football teams there are. And yes, anyway, so I think that it's be aware of what your goals are and how you're going to get there. There's nothing wrong with that, but also be aware of what other opportunities there are out there. And I think students gravitate toward those type of big picture jobs because that's just what they know. And so that's kind of our job, is to try to help them understand all the other opportunities that are out there, and then sort of push them to, again, figure out what they like and don't like, and then hopefully they jump the right direction.
Well, thank you so much again, Dr. Crawford. This has been just fantastic information. As someone who's worked in sports before, I really enjoyed your insight and your continuous leadership in this field. And I'm very excited for the future generation coming through WSU. And for those of you who are watching, who are interested in a future career in sports, you can find more information about degrees in this field and the opportunity to join the sports management program at choose.wsu.edu. Good night, everyone.